His name was Nico, 12 years old, small for his age, quiet, with big brown eyes that looked like they had seen more than any kid should. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was polite, kind, grown up in a way that made people pause. Nico lived with his mom and little sister in a small apartment above a laundry shop. The walls were thin, the stairs creaked, and there was only one heater that worked sometimes. Still, he never complained. Not once. Every day after school, Nico walked 3 blocks to the corner of 8th and Main. That was his spot. Right next to the bench, with the chipped blue paint, and across from the corner deli. He stood there in the sun, in the rain, in the cold, always with a handful of balloons tied to a stick and a small cardboard sign taped to his backpack. Balloons $1. Help a family. Thank you. These weren't the big floating kind. No helium, just simple plastic ones in bright colors, red, yellow, green, and blue, each tied with care to a thin white string. Balloons you had to carry in your hand. Balloons that tugged a little in the wind. Some people stopped. A few smiled, dropped $1, and kept walking. Others ignored him. A few crossed the street before they reached him. But Nico didn't let that bother him. He had work to do. You see, Nico wasn't just selling balloons for fun. His mom worked long hours cleaning offices. His little sister Lily was only 5 and had asthma, the kind that made her chest rattle at night and her breathing sound like whispers. Medicine cost money. So did food, so did rent, and Nico, he was the man of the house. Every balloon he sold meant something: a can of soup, a bus ticket, a doctor visit, a warm blanket. He counted each dollar like treasure, tucking the bills carefully into the worn zipper pouch inside his backpack. That backpack had seen better days. One strap was frayed, and there was a small hole near the zipper where a pencil could slip out if you weren't careful. But Nico never complained about that, either. He had his job, his mission, his purpose. Most of all, he had pride, not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from doing something hard, and doing it anyway. He stood tall, even when his legs ached, even when the wind stung his face, even when people walked by like he wasn't even there. Because he was there. Every day, rain or shine, selling balloons, holding it together, doing his part. But sometimes, the people we think are just passing by are watching much more closely. That Tuesday started like any other. Nico woke up early, careful not to wake Lily, who was curled up on the mattress beside him. Their mom had already left for work. A sticky note on the fridge reminded Nico to pick up bread on the way home. He blew up the balloons before school, 10 of them, all bright colors, and tied each one tightly with string. Then he stuffed them gently into his drawstring bag and zipped it closed. On the walk to school, he could feel them shifting behind him like little bursts of color waiting to fly. After the last bell rang, he didn't stop to play or talk with the other kids. He walked straight to the corner of 8th and Main, his spot. By 3:30, he was standing there like always, balloons bobbing beside him, sign taped to his backpack, hope in his eyes. But today was slow. People rushed past, eyes on their phones, bags in their hands. Horns honked at the light. A man shouted at a delivery driver who double-parked. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked non-stop. Nico stood there quietly, trying not to let the noise get to him. The balloons tugged a little in the wind. His arms started to feel tired, and still, no one stopped. By 4 o'clock, he hadn't sold a single one. His stomach growled, but he stayed still. That's when a man in a gray coat appeared. He was tall, maybe in his 40s. He had a beard that was a little scruffy, a face that looked like it had seen both hard days and good ones, and eyes, kind eyes, that made Nico look up from his shoes. The man paused, looked at the balloons, then looked at Nico. "How much for all of them?" he asked, his voice calm. Nico blinked. "All of them?" "Yes, every single one." Nico looked at his small bunch of balloons. $10, he said softly. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn brown wallet. He handed Nico a 20. "Keep the change." Nico's hands trembled slightly as he took the bill. "Thank you, sir," he said. The man smiled. But instead of taking the balloons, he did something strange. He turned around and walked away. The balloons still floated beside the bench, swaying in the breeze. Nico stood there, confused. "Sir?" he called. But the man didn't look back. He just disappeared into the crowd. No balloons in hand, no explanation, and there Nico was, holding a $20 bill and staring at the balloons he no longer needed to sell. Nico stood frozen, confused. Why would someone buy them all and leave them behind? It was the beginning of November. The air was cold, but not quite winter. Mornings were frosty, and the sun set earlier each day. Leaves blew across the sidewalk, like they had somewhere to be. Kids walked to school, in light jackets, hands stuffed in their pockets, talking about Thanksgiving break, or what costumes they wore last week. For most kids, November meant shorter days and holiday movies on TV. But for Nico, November meant something else. It meant pressure. The rent was due at the end of the month. Their mom, who cleaned offices, had missed 3 days of work already because of a cough that wouldn't go away. She looked tired all the time now, like even blinking took energy. And Lily, his little sister, had holes in both her shoes. Nico had tried patching them with tape, but the tape peeled off in the rain. He didn't complain. He never did. He just tried to sell more balloons. But now the days were shorter. Fewer people walked by after school. The light faded fast, and it wasn't safe to stay out too late. Every minute counted. That Tuesday on the corner of 8th and Main, Nico had been worried. Worried he wouldn't make enough. Worried he'd have to skip dinner again. Worried Lily would cry when her socks got wet. And then that man came. A man in a gray coat, a $20 bill, a quiet smile, and all the balloons left behind. It was the first time anyone had ever bought all his balloons. The first time someone had handed him that much money at once. But even more confusing than the kindness was the way the man didn't take anything with him, just walked away like it was nothing. Like Nico's load wasn't just balloons, but something heavier he couldn't see. Have you ever seen someone do something kind for no reason? Comment below with your story. Like this video if you believe in silent heroes. Subscribe for more powerful stories of everyday kindness. But that one moment, that one stranger, was just the beginning. The corner of 8th and Main wasn't fancy. A stoplight blinked red and green all day, whether people were watching or not. Cars came and went. Some honked, some just rolled through, like the drivers were lost in their own worlds. Across the street sat a small laundromat with flickering lights. Beside it, a taco cart always smelled like grilled onions and something spicy. Next to that, a little city park leaned toward forgotten. The grass was patchy. The benches wobbled. There were monkey bars, a cracked slide, and one swing that still worked. The others had chains hanging loose or were gone completely. Behind Nico was the side wall of a hardware store. The paint was peeling in long strips. Someone had spray painted a heart there once, but now it just looked like a question mark. Kids Nico's age passed by every day, but they didn't stop. Headphones in, eyes down, walking fast, like the sidewalk was just a hallway to something better. The streets smelled like hot dogs, dirt, and pavement that never really got clean. It was loud, busy, sometimes cold, often lonely, but it was Nico's spot. It was where he stood, every day after school, back straight, balloons in hand, hoping someone would stop, hoping today would be enough, hoping people saw more than just a kid with cheap balloons. And now, the corner had changed, because someone had noticed, someone had stopped, and though he never said much, never took the balloons, and never stayed long, that stranger left something behind every time, a quiet kind of hope. But the man didn't just come once, he came again and again. The next week, the man came back. Same coat, same soft voice, same kind eyes. He walked up slowly, like he wasn't in a rush. Nico noticed how the man always looked around first, at the sky, the street, the people, like he was watching more than just traffic. How much today? The man asked. Nico had 9 balloons that day. He didn't hesitate. $9. The man handed him a $10 bill. Keep the change, he said, like before. Then he walked away, just like that, and again, he left the balloons behind, tied them gently to the same bus bench, never looked back. It happened 3 times. Same thing, every time. Once it was 10 balloons. Another time, only 6. Each time, the man paid more than he needed to. And each time, he left the balloons behind, fluttering in the breeze, like tiny flags, for something Nico couldn't explain. Nico started to wonder, was it some kind of game? Was the man just being nice, like charity, or was it something else? He wanted to ask, every time he tried. Why do you? Hey sir, can I? But the man would just nod, smile a little, and keep walking. Not cold, not mean, just quiet. And somehow Nico understood not to push, because something about those days was different. He got to go home early. He got to make dinner with his mom, even if it was just rice and beans. He got to walk his sister to the corner store before dark. He got to be a kid for a few more hours, and that felt like a gift. Not the kind wrapped in shiny paper, but the kind that made the air feel lighter, like someone had taken a little bit of the weight off his shoulders and didn't ask for anything in return. Sometimes, answers don't come with words, they come with peace. Nico wasn't used to extra, he was used to just enough, or less than enough. But after that third or fourth time, the man came and left those balloons behind. Something in Nico changed. He began to save. Not all the money, he still had things to help with. Groceries, medicine, rent, but some. A few dollars tucked inside an envelope. He slid behind a loose board in the wall. He didn't count it often, he just added what he could, quietly, secretly. One day, he used some of that saved money to buy his sister a backpack. Not a big one, just something simple and pink, with one zipper that stuck halfway if you didn't hold it right. Nico fixed it, used a spoon to press the teeth back together, watched a video on an old phone at the library, tied a keychain to the strap. When he gave it to her, she smiled like it was the best thing she'd ever seen, and that was better than any sale. Another time, Nico paid the light bill. He walked 3 blocks to the corner office, stood in line with grown-ups, and slid the folded money under the glass, like he'd done it 100 times before. The woman behind the counter didn't even blink. She just gave him a receipt. And that night, when the lights stayed on, Nico sat at the little table in the kitchen and did something else he hadn't done in a long time. He read. He'd gotten an old library card from the outreach van that visited the park, checked out a book with a ripped cover and dog-eared pages. It wasn't for school, it wasn't for anything but him. A story about a boy who built a kite from scraps and learned how to fly it in the middle of the city. Nico read 2 chapters before bed. 3. The next night, he started dreaming of wind, of string, of lift. He told no one about the man. Not his mother, who had too many worries already. Not his sister, who would have asked too many questions. Not even Mr. Sal, at the corner shop, the man who gave him water every day and called him little boss. It was like a secret blessing, a kindness wrapped in quiet, a silent support system in a gray coat with worn-out shoes. Then one day, it stopped. The man didn't come. Nico stood in his spot, holding balloons that wiggled in the cold breeze. He waited, watched. Every person who passed looked like they might be him, until they weren't. He didn't cry, he didn't panic, but a small part of him, the part that had started to believe in tiny miracles, went still. And sometimes, the silence after kindness is even louder than the act itself. A week passed, then 2, then 3. The cold deepened. Nico added gloves to his routine, mismatched, one blue and one gray. He stood at the same corner, same time, same routine. He still tied balloons each morning, still looped them gently to his wrist, still waded through the noise and the rush of people who didn't stop. But he couldn't help looking up. Every day, just a glance here and there, toward the crosswalk, toward the alley near the laundromat, toward the taco cart across the street. He looked for the gray coat, for the beard, for the quiet nod, but the man didn't come. Nico didn't know if he was disappointed or just sad. One cloudy afternoon, after making only 2 sales, Nico gathered his balloons into a soft bundle and crossed the street to the taco cart. The woman behind the cart, Marisol, had kind eyes, and always called him, mi pequeño luchador, my little fighter. He waited until she handed a wrapped taco to someone else before he spoke. Can I ask you something? She looked down from the steam, rising off the grill. Of course. Have you seen the man with the gray coat? Nico asked. The one with the beard. She wiped her hands and thought for a moment. He comes by sometimes. Not lately, but he used to. Nico's voice got small. Do you know his name? Marisol shook her head. No, he never said. She paused, then leaned a little closer. lowering her voice, like she was passing on a secret. But once he told me something strange. Nico's eyes locked on hers. What? She smiled softly, as if remembering something gentle. He said, that boy, with the balloons. I just want him to get one early evening. Just one, that's all. Nico blinked. A feeling moved through him, light, but heavy at the same time. His fingers tightened on the balloon strings. That man hadn't just been generous. He hadn't just been passing time. He had cared, not loudly, not for thanks, but truly. He didn't buy the balloons because he needed them. He bought them so a tired kid could go home early. Just once, just enough, and Nico had. He'd gotten home early, helped his mom, walked his sister, read his book. It had meant more than he'd realized. And now, he knew why. That stranger hadn't needed to be seen. He just wanted to give someone a break. And just like that, the truth found its way home. Nico never saw the man again, but he never forgot him either. It was funny how you could live your life, day after day, not knowing that someone was watching, not realizing that a simple act of kindness could change everything. Every time Nico tied a balloon, he remembered. Every time he finished his work early and got to head home, he felt the warmth of that gift. Every time he saw someone standing alone, looking tired or lost, he smiled. He didn't rush past them. He didn't look away. He remembered what it felt like to be seen when no one else was looking. He understood now. He understood something deeper than just selling balloons. Sometimes, you don't need a reason to care. Sometimes, you don't need credit or thanks. Sometimes, you don't need a spotlight to do something meaningful. Sometimes, the best support is silent. Sometimes, the biggest kindness is letting someone rest. Sometimes, buying a balloon is really just about buying a kid an evening off. Nico carried those lessons with him. He grew up, finished school, got a small job, and then, one day, he saved up enough to do something he'd always dreamed about. He opened a tiny bookshop near that same corner where he'd once stood with his balloons. Every year, on the same November day, he bought 10 balloons. And every year, he left them tied to a bench at the same corner, just in case another kid needed to go home early. Just in case another person needed a moment of quiet kindness. He never knew who would need it, but he knew someone would. Because real kindness doesn't always wave a flag. It just shows up and lets you breathe. Has someone ever helped you quietly, without asking for anything in return? Share your story below. Like this story, if you believe in silent support and everyday heroes. Subscribe for more stories that show us the smallest act of love can change everything.